أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته Juma Mubarak. So we will be continuing from the 12th word. We had begun that last week. We had read the first principle, and here the 12th word specifically has been kind of consisting of a comparison between the wisdom of the Quran, right, and students of the Quran, as opposed to what it calls wisdom of philosophy and those who are students of that. I'm happy to offer like a brief summary of the first principle, unless someone else would like to have a summary of just the first principle was about. I mean, right, we had the example of a king, a ruler, who asks both a Muslim scholar and the ignorant philosopher or the European philosopher, right, to kind of present their findings about the Quran, right? And the European philosopher focuses on the jewels that are embodied on the physical book, right? Outlining in great detail all the technicalities, being that he's a good engineer and skillful chemist and whatnot, and kind of writing his work in response to those aspects of the book, whereas the Muslim scholar, in comparison, focuses on the actual meaning and discusses the various truths that the Quran carries. And so the point of this first principle was to show the two very different approaches that one can have towards the world, right? If we think of the world as a kind of Quran. And the first approach representing ideologies, worldviews in which one purely approaches the material or the materiality of things and describes them in that sense, which ends up being a very sort of reductionist approach to what things are, right? Not focusing on the meaning of it. Whereas the Quranic worldview, which offers us a way to understand, to translate the meanings, the joys of the world, and to see things not just for themselves, but also the ways in which they are indicators of their source or signposts of their source. And the classic example that everyone discussed last week was, right, of the rose, not just describing the details of the rose itself, but also the meaning that it conveys, the meaning that it carries much beyond itself. And similarly, how everything in the world, right, if we see it as a book, then we're also looking for a specific meaning that each existing entity carries, signifying beyond themselves to the qualities of the one who creates them. So that's sort of my very brief summary of that first principle, but any thoughts that come to mind? Hopefully this sort of brings our minds back into the context of the discussion, but any thoughts or comments, concerns from last week's discussion on this topic per se? Perhaps just another anecdote you wanted to share or emphasize, underline, or a question that was left unresolved. Okay, so let's move on then, unless someone has something to say. Okay, I'm seeing nods, but go ahead. Do you have the microphone?
That was good. So one maybe important part, maybe we didn't highlight enough, is the fact that the scientist, he didn't know the language of the book. So the book was written in a certain language, and she didn't know about the language. So when we read it that way, it sounds as if there's a injustice there. One is knowing the language, the other one doesn't know the language.
And it also says that the European philosopher did not even know that it was a book to begin with,
Yeah.
right?
So when we try to apply this to ourselves, and as we said, the book is just an example, the metaphor. The author also said you should apply it to the entire universe, the life that you are living in. So we should question then which of them I am closer. And we discussed this before, that in Quranic explanations, which author is imitating, there are binaries, like black and whites, and you somehow locate yourself in between, which part I'm, which side I'm closer, or at what side I am right now in this specific moment. So when we ask this question within this example, we usually find ourselves on the scientist, the philosopher side. And what I mean with that, when we look at our lives, most of the times we cannot make sense of it. We don't even understand or accept that there's a sense to make. Something happens, like she's slightly, let's say, angry, relatively speaking. I mean, she's not an angry child, but relatively speaking, she's angrier today. So we take it as, oh, probably something happened. Maybe there's I don't know, a wound somewhere, or something is hurting her. Maybe it was, the clothes that she was wearing, maybe too tight. I'm just making up. That's how we look. We don't think there's a message there to read. We don't think there's a sense that we should make out of this. So it's all about the kid, its clothing, just like the letters, how they fit together. After A comes B, and we count them. So we don't know that this is a book. We don't know what language it is written. So I think that's worth to highlighting. We should start from there. We don't know how to read. I don't know how to read it. I don't know the language. And revelation comes to teach us the language, teach us how to read it. It says you've been talking about some made up names, that the Revelation says. You come up with these fancy names like the motherhood, fatherhood, the relationship with the baby. You assign some qualities to mother, baby, father, whatever. You explain all these within these so-called psychological frameworks. But the Quran says, no, you should read it in the names that have some sultan, the authority. So when you look at the event, you should see some names. Like when we talk about the language is made up what? Names, right? The nouns, verbs, and so on and so forth. So Quran comes and teach us that everywhere you look, the words, the nouns that you will use should be the beautiful names of the Creator. I look at these created things, and I don't read it in the name of God. I don't read it with the nouns, the words provided by Quran, taught me through Quran, but I use the words I learned in school, in my society, from my grandfather, in the monkey example, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's the only thing I want to say.
Jazakumullah khair. Yeah. Right. So the question becomes, when I encounter things in my life, whatever I experience, do I see it as something that has meaning so that I want to read it, right? Or do I dismiss it? Do I just see it as something that happens by itself, that I just happen to experience or face in my life? So, inshallah, if there are no further comments, questions on this first principle, let's at least read the second principle and try to discuss it a bit. Do we have any volunteers to just read it? So that we have a different voice besides my own. You want to read it?
A comparison between the moral training, the wisdom of the all-wise Quran gives to personal life. The sincere student of philosophy is a pharaoh, but he is a contemptible pharaoh who worships the basest thing for the sake of benefit. He recognizes everything from which can profit as his lord. And that irreligious student is obstinate and refractory, but he's wretched together with his obstinacy and accepts endless abasement for the sake of one pleasure. And he's abject together with his recalcitrance and shows his abasement by kissing the feet of satanic individuals for the sake of some base benefit. And that irreligious student is conceited and domineering, but since he can find no point of support in his heart, he's an utterly impotent, blustering tyrant. And that student is a self-centered seeker of benefit whose aim and endeavor is to gratify his animal appetites, a crafty egotist who seeks his personal interests within certain nationalist interests. However, the sincere student of Qur'anic wisdom is a servant, but he does not stoop to worship even the greatest of creatures. He is an esteemed slave who does not take a supreme benefit like paradise as the aim of his worship. And its student is humble. He's righteous and mild, yet outside the limits of his maker's leave, he would not voluntarily lower and abase himself before anything other than his maker. And he's weak and in want, and he knows his weakness and poverty, but he is self-sufficient due to the wealth which his all-generous Lord has stored up for him in the hereafter. And he's strong, since he relies on his master's infinite power. And he acts and strives only for God's sake, for God's pleasure, and for virtue. Thus, the training the two give may be understood from the comparison of the two students.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you for that beautiful reading. Since you still have the mic right now, any just initial thoughts on like what the author is saying? What's going on here? Is he just insulting philosophy? What's the deal?
I think he's describing what the two kinds of students are, and categorizing their purpose of study, like what they want to take, what their aim is. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Jazakallah. So any other thoughts on this short section, right? So we have the sincere student of philosophy who is a pharaoh, and we have the sincere student of Quranic wisdom who is a servant. So is this section just saying philosophy bad, philosophy student bad, Quran good? What's going on? We should close down all those philosophy departments. Shut them down.
Or just keep the insincere ones.
Keep the insincere ones?
Sincere ones.
Okay. So let's parse through it, perhaps, right? So it says the sincere student of philosophy is a pharaoh, but he is a contempt, and maybe beyond the names here, we can focus on the description. But he's a contemptible pharaoh who worships the basest thing for the sake of benefit. So what does it mean for one to be a pharaoh, right? Like, how is that descriptor useful for us? He recognizes everything from which he can profit as his Lord, right? As his Rabb. So he takes anything that he sees beneficial from, or that he can benefit from, profit from, as the one that sustains him or provides for him, right?
Okay, so this, just a second. So this reminded me of
story of Pharaoh. Pharaoh is this tyrannical leader who thinks that he is the lord of the people, so strong. Yet, when Musa alayhi salam challenges him, so he goes and asks to his rulers or his people that shares his kingdom, and he says, what shall we do? And they say, well, let's gather together the wizards, and then wizards are going to fight against him. So in this case, really, this tyrannical lord who thinks that he's so strong is hoping that the wizards is going to save the day. So he is, and wizards are people who are tricking others. Like they're not like people to be, rely on. They are the liars pretty much, because you know that by the time you hire them, you know that I am after tricking people. And these are the tricksters. And I'm going to work with the people who trick others just to save the day. And in here he is implying that a student of philosophy, although if you look from outside, seems like, oh, very, self-confidence is there. I am strong, I am smart, this sort of self-confidence is there. He says, although claiming to be a small god within his her territory, is ready to prostrate before or become a slave of anything that's going to give me the satisfaction that I'm looking for, or the basest satisfaction that I'm looking for. What does this mean in practical life? So here, I guess in our society, we are saying that, oh, you should trust yourself, have self-confidence. But when it comes to me asking for promotion or me speaking about truth or not, I'm just becoming this super vulnerable person, and all this self-confidence and everything is going out of the window. And I am trying to please all those who I think are going to benefit me. It might be the people that I wouldn't normally say hi to if I see them in the street, but since my benefit is now there, it then becomes, well, up until, as we have a saying, up until you pass the bridge, just you have to be good in good terms with people. So this becomes the standpoint. If I think my strength comes from myself, this is what it means to be a pharaoh. I think my strength comes from my own credentials.
Jazakallah khair. So then we can understand, here it's a sincere student of philosophy, and initially that can maybe seem a bit removed from many of us, right? Like, oh, I don't even study philosophy. I am in STEM, or I'm an accountant. Like, this isn't to do with me. But any approach, any worldview in which I am precisely trying to approach things in terms of, okay, how can this benefit me, right? What benefit can I get from this person, from that person? And seeing qualities that I would like let's say it's sustenance, right? And thinking that it belongs to a specific entity, right? Very easy example, like my boss. Like, oh, my boss is the one that sustains me. I have to keep him happy. I have to keep her happy. And so I end up, in one sense, right, abasing myself because I have to make sure they're happy, keep them, this is me kind of throwing it out there, like quarterly reports have to be good or something, whatever they do in the corporate world. Or I have to network with these people, enter these social circles so that, I live a certain lifestyle, and I also benefit from various people's careers that they might bring me, have one good lawyer friend, have one good med friend, and whatnot. And he says that a religious student is obstinate and refractory, but he's wretched together with his obstinacy and accepts endless abasement for the sake of one pleasure. Yeah, please.
So this also reminded me of, since we are talking about Pharaoh, and Lord means Rab. So Pharaoh mentions that I am Rabbukum al-A'la to the people. But when it comes to Egyptian rulers, there's another mention of Rab in Quran, and that is in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. So Yusuf alayhi salam has two friends in the when he's in the prison, and they see some dream, and Yusuf alayhi salam interprets their dream, and he says, after making them dawah, then he interprets their dream, and to one of them he says, you're going to die, and to the other he says, you're going to be saved from this prison. I mean, you're going to offer drink to your Lord. But then he says, "Udhkurni inda rabbik," remember me before your Lord, because Yusuf alayhi salam is imprisoned unjustly, and he is reminding the person who is eventually going to again serve the ruler. This is why it took Pharaoh, like the ruler of Egypt, whomever he was. Remember me when you are going to serve him again, because just say that, oh, there was this guy who was put in prison unjustly. And the following verse says, فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ. So like right after this, or as a consequence of this, Quran is combining the two, saying that Satan made him forget, and Yusuf stayed in the prison for some more time. I'm taking this story for myself since I'm also Yusuf. So for my promotion, if I go and if I have the urgency within myself, which I do, to knock the door of my department head and say that you still remember the promise you gave me, with the hope that his remembering me is going to give me the promotion, then I'm taking him partially as my Lord. And in here, this reminded me of this, because although author in here is really talking black and white, but I am trying to see where do I fit in this picture. So if I do see that this person remembering me is going to give me the benefit, so let me knock his door and remind about myself. I mean, this shouldn't mean that never remind yourself or whatnot, but I'm talking about my internal mechanics. How do I think about it? How do I take it? And in order to really get that promotion, to what extent I sacrifice things, or to make myself more pleasant to them, how many extra hours do I work and whatnot. So to the extent that I fall prey to this sort of an attitude, then I start taking it as, well, if I please these lords, then I'm going to be given the promotion that I'm looking for. So this could, I mean, as an example, everybody, I guess, have lords in their worlds that they try to please. But where does the benefit come from? And whom do I try to please so that I achieve this benefit that I'm looking for? And there could be another side of that question. What do you mean, Yusuf? Does this mean that I'm not going to work? Does this mean that I'm not going to make an application? That's not what I am saying, for sure. Internally, how much am I convinced that really, if I please this guy, he is influential in administration, then my job is going to be done. As much as this is functioning in there, I'm falling into that category, at least partially.
Jazakallah khair. Any other thoughts on this? Oh, yeah, please go ahead.
I just want to ask you a question on top of that. Like, so since you say that going to your boss or whoever will, and if you internally think that pleasing him will get you the promotion, what would be an appropriate way to get that promotion done, if not trying to please, or like trying to do a good job in front of your boss in light of this?
I think the way I understand it is less of the less of the way you do it and more on the intention or the niyyah you have in your heart. And I'd love to discuss about it, but I think it's not to not please the boss, but please the boss and keep in your heart that the boss is not granting you that, like, your maker is giving you that. Not like the boss does not control you or provide you with it. You can do the work for it. I mean, in practical terms, you have to earn it, I guess, but ultimately your maker gives you that, I think.
Right. I mean, there could be an instance in which you do everything that you you do your work, you put in the hours, but then, he doesn't get pleased, but then, the sustenance that you seek, maybe the promotion, the raise that you seek comes in the form of a new job offer from an unexpected place, right? So I guess it's about recognizing that this isn't the person that I have to literally or figuratively like beg in front of, right? Because they themselves are probably dependent on some other promotion, on some other raise. Like they have the same needs that I have as well. So then I have to ask for it or expect it from one who isn't subject to the same neediness, the same dependency, the same fragility as I and my boss are subject to. Yeah.
So let's say, for example, that you've worked for it and you feel like you've earned that promotion, you're still not getting it. And you ask your maker, you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and well, you still are stuck in that same position. Like, do you just become content with the fact that maybe this is Allah's decision? Or do you how do you, if you still want to proceed further, what do you do when you're stuck in in one place if nothing is happening and you feel like you're doing all the work and you deserve that promotion?
So I guess, I mean, in this practical case, then it simply becomes a matter of justice. And I would say, well, it's unjust. And I will speak about it. And if they insist not giving me, then I'll quit the job. So rather than trying to bend and please that person, so that because now it's being like I start worshiping the ego of that person, then it's a separate issue. But if it's a matter of justice, then now it's becoming to an unjust position. So, like, for example, if you're hungry, you will go to the bakery and buy bread. Like, it's not that, oh, do not ask bread from the baker. You will take the bread from the baker, but you will know that this bread is a gift of your creator. Baker is being employed in there. You will not go and beg or try to be sympathetic to the bakers just to attract bakers' love. So likewise, in such a case, when promotion is not being given to me, so you will ask, but if not given, then it's an injustice and then you will leave. Or if you would like to stay, you will say that, well, I'm not going to beg before you. I know this is unjust. I'll keep working in here, but I don't care about you. I turn my face towards my creator.
I find the easiest, like most contemporary example of if a package shows up at my door, I don't go hug the UPS driver and say, thank you so much. This is my favorite thing ever. Like I recognize that they are, they serve a means there, right? But I know that it's my, auntie who sends me gifts and care packages and, knows exactly what I need and that I can, and she's very wealthy, let's say, and I can request whatever I like from her, right? So in that sense, the UPS driver might change. Someone else might be in that position, right? And in my life, I do experience that. Sometimes there's a quality I experience, maybe it's sustainability, maybe it's compassion. I might experience it from my mother, I might experience it from a loved one, right? But the UPS driver is just they're not the permanent source. So I don't have to also beg from the UPS driver saying, please bring me this package, please. You know, like they're just carrying it. Like again, it's an analogy. I guess that's I don't know if that's helpful, but that's how I kind of think of. So this mindset of the philosophy student, right, is one in which I'm begging at the doorsteps of every UPS driver and thinking that they are the ones that are going to bring me my groceries, my, you know, grant me what I need and whatnot. No, I can't remove myself from the order in which this world works. Like I end up having a boss in society. I end up having being within the structures of the society, but I can still recognize that what I am receiving is not from them themselves. There are two. It looked like you had something to say, maybe. You looked very thoughtful. So I'll just maybe see if you do have something to say.
I was actively listening, nodding. I guess I was thinking about maybe the idea that it could also be very anxiety inducing to just rely on my boss. And at one point, I'll never be happy because I'm always anxious. I'm always like, oh, I just need to keep working harder. Oh, I only worked 16 hours today. Maybe if I just do one more hour, maybe I'll get that promotion. Maybe you do put in that hour and you still don't get the promotion. So at that point, I have to question myself and think like, obviously then he's not able to do that because I did do the hours that I've seen on the average people poll and it still didn't occur. So there has to be something above this boss. And I think that's when the questioning can come in. Like I've done what I think is the best that I can give and I'm still stuck. Then obviously I think it's an inward question for me to ask and ponder because I'm just more anxious now than I was before. So
Next thing you know, you're leaving the office when they leave the office. Suddenly they're working till 6:30. So we can't expect it from the bosses, right? We got to set our own standards. All right, let's continue, inshallah. Unless there's a comment, but is it on topic? Okay.
I'm thinking this
Says the boss.
I'm thinking of the concept of earning something. Like I earned it. Like I think the concept of justice for sure. Like if I work really hard and then I don't, let's say, get the raise or whatever I'm looking for, I'm like, yeah, this is unappreciated. This isn't just. I really feel that. And I think there's some truth to it. But I also think, on the other hand, why do I think I even earned something? How do I earn something? I think there's also a problem underlying there because technically, if I think about it, you know, what can I really claim to have earned? You know, what am I doing? Yeah, let's say you studied really hard or you work really long hours or you do all these things, but your ownership there is so little. It's almost nothing. Like really what you're doing there. I mean, there's so many circumstances that put you there and so many things you were just given to you. Like you didn't work for them even. They were just given to you, like family, location, opportunity, all these different things. And then there you maybe took a few steps and then boom, you're somewhere. So I think it's a very good lesson when you don't get it. I think it's maybe in the best education when you don't get it and you know your creator is telling you, hey, you didn't actually earn this. Like, are you okay? I thought you said something. You didn't actually earn this. You don't this mindset you have is actually wrong. And it's actually going to take you somewhere like to a pharaonic type of mindset where now you're a slave before everything. So just the other side of it.
Just to make your example clear, I think it's an important example, but so it's not misunderstood. Like someone can come from circumstances in which maybe you don't have any connections, you don't have any family, you know, by all means, it seems like you're working your way up, right? And there can be a sense of like, no, I really did earn this. Like I didn't come any from structural privilege or societal privilege. But even there, like the qualities of perhaps intelligence, the quality of being able to think, the quality of being able to work hard on something, the quality of being able to discipline yourself, or you know, all these of being able to put effort into something. Those qualities, like I don't create them, right? I ask for them and they're given. I study, and then it's the understanding, the comprehension is given. So even there, it's like, are these qualities mine such that I claim ownership over them and say that the result is mine, right? Like, let's say somebody gives you all the tools, everything that you need, and then you make something. And let's say, you know, it's like the matrix thing that Brother Yusuf always mentions, like they plug it in, the skills are also downloaded into you. Like you didn't necessarily earn it, it's given to you by the creator. So I think that's what you were sort of trying to highlight in terms of earning the givenness of the various qualities that we experience.
Yeah, I think that I don't like, it's kind of, the mindset is very different. Like I worked hard so I could get this. I think here, you know, he makes this interesting comment. You know, the Abd is one who doesn't even do it for paradise. Like even for paradise, you're not worshiping, which I think is a very deep concept to understand maybe. But one way I'm understanding is you're not even working. Like I'm doing something so for a result kind of thing. I deserve a result. I act in a certain way. Now I deserve a result. So that's like the mindset, like when I have at work, I work really hard, so I deserve something. Or I did this, I earned it, so I deserve it. It's like this concept of entitlement, earning. I think when it comes to the Abd, it always says he's humble. He realizes he's poor. Like it's not, I'm earning it, I deserve it. It's rather, I seek refuge from someone. I'm doing it because I'm worshiping my creator. I'm doing it so I'm seeking from my creator. I'm asking. Like to make it practical, like if I had the option to live a world where I did nothing, but I had food and this and that, and I just sat in one place, versus I had to work hard or I had to go and get it myself and live life, like I would choose to live life. You know, it seems more challenging, it seems harder, but I'm actually doing something. I wouldn't, sitting in a jail, or even if you had all the food and everything you wanted, it's not like you wouldn't enjoy it. That's not like you want to go and you want to like these experiences you have, like you want to kind of I lost my train of thought. But basically I think coming back to the point, there's like this out here who is asking from his creator, but there isn't like this external reward or deserving something or feeling like entitlement is there. It's rather in the doing, the acting seems to be the reward itself, or seems to be the purpose of it itself.
So, like a few lines after in the same paragraph, the writer also says that, but he is self-sufficient due to the wealth which his all generous Lord has stored up for him in the hereafter. And just before he stated that, like you're not, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, he's an esteemed slave who does not take a supreme benefit like paradise as the aim of his worship. But also then he talks about self-sufficiency, which also comes from the reward that will be in the hereafter. I feel like that's a little like, I would love if we could discuss that more.
So just clarify your question. You're saying,
First,
yeah,
the writer says that a supreme benefit like paradise, like an esteemed slave who does not take a supreme benefit like paradise as the aim of his worship.
right.
But then the writer also says that the self-sufficiency is also due to the wealth which is granted in the hereafter or stored in the hereafter for you.
Right. Yeah. So how do we understand the model of the student model here being given in the second example of one who, you know, worships does not do so for the sake of paradise, but nevertheless is given a sense of self-sufficiency due to what his creator has stored for him in the hereafter. So how do we understand those two separate sentences, right? It's a good question. Any thoughts? Yeah.
When they say self-sufficient or self-sufficiency, I'm also confused on what they mean by that. They say that he's self-sufficient due to the reward of the hereafter, but I thought this whole paragraph was just saying how he's not self-sufficient at all. So that is something I'm confused about.
So I would say let's keep going in pairs. Maybe then we can compare the two. So before coming to your question, so let's get done with the previous part. So in the previous part, he was talking about the pharaoh, yet so worshiping the basest needs. And on the other side, what does the student of Quran look like? He's a slave, yet is a servant or slave. He's an abd. Like, however, the sincere student of Quranic wisdom is a servant, and the original word in the original text here is abd, like which is a slave. But he does not stoop to worship even the greatest of creatures. He's an esteemed abd who does not take a supreme benefit like paradise as the aim of his worship. So to contrast, in one, although the guy looked like a pharaoh, self-respect and everything, yet begging before anything that the person considers to be benefit worthy. On the other hand, the servant of the creator only worships the creator, and even the biggest of the creation, whatever it is, let it be the president, let it be like huge chunks of wealth, or maybe more importantly, being appreciated by others, being famous. None of these things would be worthy for this person to be banned before. He's not going to give in to any of these. And he takes it one step further. Even he's not going to take Jannah, the paradise, as a benefit for his abdness. I am becoming an abd of the creator so that I get into paradise. Says even the proper Quranic student is not going to take it as, oh, this is the payment of my ubudiyah. So this is how he is putting it. And if you are okay with that, we can move on. But I just wanted to highlight this aspect. Good.
I guess I want to reiterate what Professor Yusuf was saying, or Yusuf was saying. If you understand kind of the rhetorical devices that are being used here, which is again what Yusuf was saying, but I hope to make it more clear, it kind of makes it obvious what Imam Nursi is saying here. Like for example, in the Quran, it says like when describing people who take their own passions as their Lord, they're like animals. No, they're worse than animals. God did not make a mistake saying there, oh, let me correct myself. It's a rhetorical device saying that, in fact, even animals, like they have their own desires to like copulate or eat food in this, but they don't exceed them. Like a lion doesn't go and slaughter 20 zebras and just eats one. Like when a lion catches a zebra in a pack, all the other zebras stop running away because they know, their friend is launched today. So in this way, he's using the same rhetorical device for both the student of philosophy and the student of Quranic wisdom. Like they say he's a pharaoh, but he's actually a contemptible pharaoh. So he's a pharaoh, but no, he's trash, but he's worse than trash. And this is done multiple times, and it's a little lost in translation as well. But he's saying like, yes, that irreligious student is obstinate and refractory, so he's stubborn, but he's also wretched together with his stubbornness and accepts an endless abasement for the sake of one pleasure. So it's not only that he's stubborn, but his stubbornness actually makes him worse than someone who's just stubborn. So this is repeated multiple times, and you can go through that to see it once more. But then again, the opposite is done with the student of Quran. The student of the Quran may look, like a good person, but in fact, like he's better than good because he has these qualities. I guess just as there's degrees to maybe how humble someone may be, like you think this person, it's this so-and-so is so humble, but then he's tested with wealth or something else, and all of a sudden his humbleness kind of vanishes. Well, the student of Quran, like they may seem, later it mentions how how he may seem weak and in poverty, but in reality, he's more than that. So it kind of helps, knowing that kind of helps understand what Imam Nursi is doing here.
So let's go with Arsalan and then Brother Birkan.
So I'm not sure I understand what you mean by payment, because
What do you mean with what? Sorry?
Payment.
Payment.
So a few weeks back we were discussing about there are goals and competition. So if there is a goal, there is a prize or whatever. So how do I reconcile that with the payment? Isn't that the same thing?
What we payment? Everything? Okay, go for it.
Latest thing.
Go for it, Sara. You have full reign.
So I'm not sure. We like. I'm not sure if it's common in other traditions or so. Like it's a kind of hadith that I grew up listening to, which kind of ranks like worshippers because he says here like he's an esteemed worshipper, that he's not he's not after paradise. It means like worshippers can be at different levels. And we had this hadith that says is for Imam Ali, because everything we have is for Imam Ali. But so it says like there's a worshipper, so there are like three types. Ibadat al-abid, it means the worship of slaves. And there's ibadat al-tujjar, which means the worship of merchants. And there's ibadat al-ahrar, which means the worship of the free. I think the free would be the best translation. And ibadat al-abid, so worship of slaves, are the ones who worship God just because they are afraid of him, so they fear hell. And the worship of the merchants are the one who worship God just because they are after paradise, which are not the most esteemed worshippers, according even to Nursi here. And the worship of the free are the ones who worship God because he is worthy of worship. So they already understood that everything is from God, without him, they are worthless or worthyless. So, I mean, I feel like that's like by default, they became like worshippers of God, not because of anything else, because that's the only thing they find worthy of doing, is worshiping the only one worthy of worshiping, which is God. So I don't know if that's like, what here, like, I mean, when we talk about like competition or like, it's not bad to be, a God-fearing Muslim, but there are levels of what kind of like worshiper you want to be, I guess. So if you want the paradise, is also fine. I mean, it's not, as long as you're living as a Muslim, I guess. I don't know. Don't give me that look.
Who's giving you what look, Sara? Tell me.
She said I like you give room for paradise, and I thought it was a nice thing, so I could just
No, I don't know. I mean, at least that's what I understood when there's like a rank of, for worshippers. And for me, it doesn't mean it's, it's bad to worship Allah for a certain reason, as long as you know whom you're worshiping. But yeah, I think you could be a better worshipper by worshiping God just because he's worthy of worship, something like that. Yeah. That was my comment.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair, Sara. Thank you for sharing the hadith as well. And that reminds me of example that's pervasive in the rabbinic tradition, where they have a student of the Torah, and they say they're trying to teach the Torah to the student, and this is applicable, like it doesn't have to be the Torah, but like, oh, if you study this, I will give you some candy, right? But the child does not know that like the candy is just an allurement for the like he will just benefit from the studying himself, right? That is the primary he's the primary beneficiary of the process itself. The candy is not what will actually benefit him in that sense. But here I want to bring our attention a little bit back to what Brother Yusuf was highlighting there, because I think this is very interesting, right? Of how this sharp contrast between one who presents himself as self-sufficient but ends up having to beg from multiple different entities, versus the one who declares he is completely or she is completely needy, but ends up having a sense of different form of self-sufficiency that is based on worship towards only the creator, right? So there's a very interesting contrast here that's going on, and perhaps we can kind of dwell a bit more on how to understand this. Like, why is this the case, right? Why is it that when I think, okay, I own myself, I can provide for myself, but then I end up having to beg at multiple doors, whereas how does declaring one's own poverty, dependency, neediness towards the creator relieve one from those same very burdens, same beggarships, right? Maybe we can discuss that portion specifically here a bit. Oh, yeah, please. Just nudge me.
I was recently worried about jobs. I'm applying for jobs, and I was talking to a friend, and he was telling me. I mean, we've heard it so much as Muslims, but for some reason it hit me so hard when I heard it, and I remember I cried a little bit because he said Allah has the best plan for you, and He really does. Like, I try to remember that text because it's like, no matter how hard I work, like Allah is always gonna have what's best for me, and I think that's sufficient for me. When I know, or when I don't know what I need, and Allah gives me just what I need. And so when I recognize that I'm needy and that Allah gives me everything I need, then that should be sufficient. Like, you should just need to worship. If that make I'm trying to tie it back in a nice way to how the Qur'anic student recognizes he's needy, yet he's self-sufficient. And I think that it could be interpreted that this self-sufficiency is because he worships, because he understands that that's all you need to do. Yeah.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Brother Yusuf.
Just to clarify one word, like it's translated as self-sufficient, but the original word in there is mustaghni. So, like the person is like mustaghni means I don't need anything from you. Like this is the attitude of that. So, a true student of Quran is an abd, but he is mustaghni, meaning free from the need to others. He is in absolute need of the Creator, but he would be very resolute and distanced, or would never beg before anything else. So not need of anything else other than his Creator. So self-sufficiency, because in our culture, in this culture, it sounds like I'm enough to myself. But the attitude of the abd in here is, my Lord is sufficient to me. I don't need anything else. So this is the sufficiency that's being mentioned in the text, which might get lost a little bit in the translation, but it's not literally self-sufficiency, but taking his Lord sufficient to him.
So maybe one example for the mustaqni. You're talking to someone and your boss, let's say, and the attitude would be, you don't have to say it on his face, maybe, but the attitude is that, I mean, you think you can control my future. You cannot even control your future. How are you supposed to control my future? Having this attitude. So the idea is not that, oh no, I can control my future myself. But knowing that your boss cannot control your future, because he cannot even control his own future. So this is, what I understand from this self-sufficient. In our society, they would say, no, you control your future. So this is not the idea. Realizing that nothing can control your future other than him.
Jazakallah. I'm gonna turn it to you in a moment. And you know, like the diagnosis in one sense is accurate, right? In terms of our societal diagnosis, like maybe we've discussed this before. And that like, yeah, we don't want to be dependent on others. We don't want to have that dependency, right? We don't want to be in debt to others or have them hold things over us. And so that's the diagnosis, right? Of a human feeling that we all share. But then the solution that we offer is, oh, we are enough. Like we can be self-sufficient. I am enough for myself. You're enough for yourself. You can be, you know, independent to yourself. Then I look at myself and I can't, you know, like I have all these needs. I have all these wants. I'm completely incapable of fulfilling them myself. So then I also don't want, I have to stay with that need, but also recognize that it can't be fulfilled by any other entity that's subject to the same conditions as I am, right? Which is everything else in this world, everyone else in this world. So I'm going to hand it to the brother, and then there are two I will hand to you after, inshallah.
All right, so you mentioned the word mustagni, but again, the self-sufficiency, like it says it's stored for him in the hereafter. So what about the dunya then? Like, how does that provide self-sufficiency in the dunya? Like, I don't want to use niche examples, but like if a poor person needs food and is starving, then what would provide the self-sufficiency? Is it just the reward in the hereafter? But it's also saying you cannot like worship for that.
So from my understanding, I think by self-sufficient, it just means that they don't rely on worldly things for their security or their well-being, but that they rely on their faith in God to provide for them. And yeah.
Like one way we can think of this maybe practically, like I'm trying to think of practical examples, right? Like let's say you're a child and your parents are your primary providers. There might be this sense of anxiety of like, what will happen to me if my parents die, right? This fear of being abandoned or left to one's own conditions. It doesn't mean that like the child should just be like, yeah, they can die, I'm fine, God will take care of me. No, like hopefully those parents will be means through which God provides for the child, right? Like manifest qualities of compassion, care, and so on. But at the same time, like the parents did not bring that child into existence, right? The parents did not bring into existence the food, nor make the food edible and compatible with that child's body, right? So even if the parents do die, that child is being given existence, being provided for by the one who placed them. Like the responsibility of that looks to the creator, right? And similarly, like I might not be a child, but I can take my steps in terms of trying to secure food or whatever I might be in need of, right? Like food is the very basic example. Like if I need a job, I'll do my applications, I'll go into my interviews, do my best homework, but also recognize that it's not my responsibility to create a specific result, nor is that outcome under the control of any of those agencies or companies or whatnot either, right? I might be the best candidate and still get declined from all of them. So I have to present those needs to my creator, in one sense. Like he is the one that's responsible for providing for me. So not like, you know, the example I like is if I'm on an airplane, like the plane is going, I don't have to hold on to the carry-on. I can put it in the luggage area. I don't have to carry it the whole time saying like, what if something happens to it? That's one way of maybe perhaps understanding it partially, but I wanted to also give Daratu a chance to talk here.
No, I think you covered it well because I was just thinking of the opposite end of people where they're like, no, I'm only relying on God. Like, so I am self-sufficient is in a different way. Like, even though the idea is like, oh no, I'm only relying on God, I don't need help. Like, it's okay, I'll keep struggling. And there's many hands and they're like, oh no, you should come to this. No, like, you're getting help ultimately from people, but you're like, no, 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 like, I'm waiting for God. So I think there's like a fine line of like, how do you know when it's your own arrogance versus like behind the idea of like, no, obviously I'm just like self-sufficiently just waiting on the one who put me on this earth, versus like it's actually more of your own ego and not wanting to submit and recognize like people helping you also is a means of submitting. So I guess like, yeah, because I think that's a fine line that I miss often.
Jazakallah. You know, I just want to say this before I turn it over to perhaps Brother Yusuf. I feel like this point that we're kind of dwelling on here is very beautifully and very succinctly handled in the first word, right? Where the author says like living with Bismillah, upon Bismillah, is giving in God's name and receiving in God's name, which means that, you know, if Zaha is kind to me, I receive that quality of kindness from her, recognizing it doesn't belong to her, but that she is a mirror, she is being a mirror, a manifestation of that very quality. And in that way, I neither oppress her, because now she's not burdened with being always supremely, perfectly kind towards me, right? Nor do I turn myself into a beggar at her doorfront. So giving and receiving in the name of God means whatever, like it's not just charity or money, like it includes that, but also qualities. It includes qualities of compassion or kindness or friendliness or sustenance, right? Like I receive something, it's through, I live in a physical world, it's going to be through a physical human being or a physical experience or whatnot. But at the same time, I can recognize that that thing itself is not the owner of the quality that I am experiencing, right? And that quality might sometimes be like, oh, I feel a sense of security because my dad is taking care of me. Like, no, I will receive it from him in God's name, not in his name. I will receive the payment from my boss in God's name, not in the boss's name. Whichever, regardless of whatever intention, he might think, oh, look, I'm so great, I'm providing for this person's livelihood, right? And also when let's say I'm the boss, like we might be in those positions at one point in life, then I know that I'm also giving in God's name. Like I am not the one who ordains the sustenance or livelihood of this person. So I think here that the Quranic student recognizes this, right? Like we say Bismillah constantly in our daily lives, perhaps, or even in prayer, like living upon Bismillah, right? Giving, receiving in his name rather than my own. And that means like upon his authority, not my own. So yeah, I'm needy. I'm completely bankrupt in terms of my own needs, completely impoverished, but at the same time, completely enriched through the name, the passport that I carry on, right? And whatever. But Brother Yusuf, you wanted to say something?
So I think they're beautiful. You put everything, they're beautiful. Just the part that we are struggling is when we see human choice in there. So this is why let's start the example with apple tree. Like when you are hungry and you are in need of a fruit, you take it from apple tree. I mean, you don't sit down, open your hands and say that, oh God, give me apple. The Creator says, if you are in need of apple, I am putting it in here, ask, and this is how I give it to you. But when you take it from the apple tree, you are taking it from your Creator, not from the tree. You say that when you take the apple, you don't say, oh, thank you, Mother Nature, or you don't say, oh, this type of tree gives the best apple. You don't say that, but rather you would say, all praise be to God. Alhamdulillah, this is what it means. So this is how I am asking from the Creator and receiving from the Creator, because this is how he manifests him being provider, sustainership. This is how I observe. So going to like putting a seed, watering it, tree grows, and you take fruits. You need to do that. The Creator says, this is how you need to ask from me. But as I am doing this, asking from him, if I say, well, I produced apple, not that due to me asking, my Creator responded, now things started to get messed up. So the believer in here, the abd in here, is saying that I'm going to ask from my creator. And the means for that is go and ask it from the tree. Well, through a tree, not from the tree. But you are going and plowing the field. But you know that the plowing the field is nothing but asking from your creator. And if it's a promotion in the job environment, you do your work, or you remind the the boss making your application, because in the companies there's a way of making the application for promotion and whatnot. But when doing this promotion, you're saying that my creator gives me the promotion. This is where I'm expecting it from. Yes, it's going to be appeared in the branch of a tree. This time it's going to be the branch of the tree would be the boss or whatever. But even when you're taking it from there, you will take it in the name of the creator and will praise the creator for that. Because of this reason, I wouldn't be begging before the boss. And if it's not given to me, and as Dara to put very beautifully, because I do feel this anxiety. So shall I do a little more to please the boss? But if I do expect it from my creator, I will say, well, as far as I understand, this is the proper way of asking from my creator. I did it. I did my portion. I asked. If he gives, it is his wisdom. If he doesn't give, it is his wisdom again. And I'm content with that. So this is where the thing is happening. So practically, this conversation doesn't mean that don't work, like lock yourself into your house and open your hands and ask from your creator. This is a type of asking. But another type of asking is the creator says, okay, work hard, but your working hard is a dua, a supplication. And I am the one that give, not your work creates or produces the outcome. On that, when it comes to akhirah, this was another question. So am I going to wait for the outcome to come in the akhirah? So in there, maybe just a small parenthesis in here. What is akhirah here? Like now, why would you work? What is the outcome of working? Let's say this guy is taking data structures class, and I give some programming assignment to him. At the end of doing the programming assignment, which he is doing late and getting 10 points off for each late day. So if his goal is to get this grade, then he's missing the point. But if he realizes that, then eventually he will get a grade, but that's not the point. But if he says that, no, I am doing this to learn. This is what stays with me. Because akhirah means after. He says, after graduation, what will stay with me is not that stupid number. But what I learned from this interaction is going to stay with me. This is the actual reward of doing the assignment. Getting 100 is not the reward of the assignment. So what stays with you after doing the assignment? So in this case, the person by worship is realizing that I am needy and I am being provided. I am being sustained. I am being protected. This is what stays with you. So this is the outcome of ibadah. And it looks to akhirah, meaning that stays with you from that moment on. In your life here and after you die, it is the thing that stays with you. Otherwise, like when we think about akhirah, so then the point is, it's really changing the point. Like normally I would say, well, and we discussed about this in the past weeks too, but for a conscious, to the extent that I'm a conscious believer, and again, how much I am there is a question mark for me. But do I see that when I eat the food, brother Bikan, correct me there, when I eat the food to the extent that, yes, there's a need, this is why I am eating food. But if I put my consciousness into eating food, I would say that my creator is creating me in this environment where I am in need of eating food, and he is providing me, sustaining me. Then I would praise my creator for sustaining and providing me there. The food that I eat is going to leave my body after 3-4 hours. But this consciousness of I have a sustainer, I have a provider who fed me today, he is so merciful, stays with me. This is the akhirah portion. And this is the reward, actual reward of eating that food. So this is why when he says he is sufficient with what his Lord gives him for the akhirah, this is the main point.
Do we have a hand? Yeah, please.
When I read he is self-sufficient due to the wealth which his all generous Lord has stored up for him in the hereafter, I interpreted that as he is, and again, we said self-sufficient is more of not needing to beg from others. He's not needing to beg from others because he knows that his Lord has stored up wealth for him in the hereafter. So in a sense, the believer knowing that there's kind of a point to this, or there is some final outcome, allows him to not beg from others, even though he might be in a position where he might need, quote unquote, need to. He might be starving or hungry, but he's able to resist it and say, I'm going to put my trust in God. And lo and behold, there is some sustenance coming from some avenue. That's how I read it.
Maybe the key word there is the abd, servant. So if we start from there, servant, the abd, the key word, it starts with that. So maybe we should understand it a little bit, at least I'm trying to understand this, thinking at the same time, speaking, not a good practice. So we understand things in opposites, right? So when I say abd, the opposite of it is rab. Rab, abd. This is the couple. To the extent you see your neediness, I need something, and it is provided to me, then you become an abd. You have a need, the need is provided. It means there's a provider, there's a Rab, and you become an abd. And that's the only way you can recognize your Rab. Unless you see your need, and unless you see that this need is recognized, satisfied, unless, sorry, the bad grammar, unless to the extent you see your need and to the extent you see that it is satisfied, you can recognize your Lord, your Rab. Otherwise, there's no Rab for you. Okay? No matter what you say, no matter what people teach you and so on and so forth. If you don't see your need and it is satisfied, there's no Rab for you. That's simple. Okay? As you realize you've been given, you've been provided, as you realize that you are a servant, like abd, the one who's been provided, right? Then the idea of I have to, work for something, I have to earn my livelihood, I have to, work hard and so on within this context, it all goes away. You say, no, I need something and it is always being provided. It is not me who's providing me. Okay? You understand that. You can apply the same thing to others as well. You look at your needs, you realize that it is satisfied, but then you realize the others cannot satisfy your needs. Your mom, for instance, you need, the love. You see that the love is manifested there, but you study your mom, right? Whether she can, create this love, whether she can give this life to you in the way you need and so on and so forth, you realize, no, my mom cannot do that. So there is a Rab that is satisfying me, giving my need, but it's not my mom. It's not my boss. It's not my friend. It's not my whatever. So the La ilaha illallah part, right? You deny all of them and you come up with your actual Rabb. So without this journey, let's say, there's no point of talking, about the let's say the way of Muslim in a working environment, the way of Muslim in a family environment. You have to first realize that you are an abd, that is not you that is creating your needs. And then it's not your friends, your boss, and so on and so forth creating your needs, but there's someone else creating my needs. When you realize this, what happens? You go to, let's say, a meeting in your working environment. Everybody is trying to, everybody's acting, trying to show how powerful they are, how knowledgeable they are, how successful they are, and so on and so forth. But you know that yourself, you don't know anything. You don't have anything. When you need to know something, it is given to you. When you need to achieve something, it is given to you. You realize that you know that. You look at them, you see the same thing. You say, I don't care how well she is acting. She's needy as I am. I don't care what she, how she dresses, how she acts, how she, move her hands, whatever, the words she uses and so on. She said, she's as needy as I am. Now you are in a situation that, you just look at her and see nothing but a needy person. Just like yourself. What it does, it gives you, quote unquote, the power, right? Your powerlessness, realizing that you don't have any power, and realizing that she doesn't have any power at all as well, it puts you in a position that she cannot harm you or benefit you, even if she tries, even he tries. So this understanding makes you mustaghni, self-sufficient. I don't need anything from him. I don't need anything from her, because even if she tries, she cannot give. She cannot provide herself either. He cannot provide himself either. So you become mustaghni, right? So when you realize this, the life is nothing but knowing your Lord. You need something, this need is satisfied, you know your Lord. Like you are hungry, okay? And then food is given. Now you know that your Lord is the one who gives food. We call it Razzaq. So now you learn something about your Lord. The hunger itself, it's not the point. The food, it's not the point. What is the point? Learning that there's a Razzaq who can satisfy you all the time. That was the point. So then within this framework, when you are starving, what would you do? Would you say, I am starving, but I have to stay patiently because I'm sure my God has something there? No, that's not the point. The point is not trying to sit there patiently, prove something, or have a wishful thinking that my Creator, I'm sure my Creator will give me the best of the food when I just cross the corner. This is not the point. The point is just realizing that you are needy, and starvation make you realize this best. So it's part of your journey, right? The whole point of life was knowing your neediness, knowing your Lord, and starvation gives you that. And you become pleased with being starved at the moment. But at the same time, it doesn't stop there. Your Lord also gives you some other needs, which is need for looking for food, but the feeling is there, right? So you don't ignore it. Your Lord gives you feeling the need for working, for instance, right? Getting some livelihood. All these needs are there. You don't deny them. You do not just, create yourself an imaginary perfect Muslim. A perfect Muslim should be starving but doing nothing. A perfect Muslim should be very patient. No, don't create such imaginary, things. Just listen what your Lord tells you. Your Lord tells you when you feel hungry, you should look for food. The feeling is there. The idea is there, right? Use them. Look for food. Work hard, not for the sake of working hard, but when you fulfill this, you will realize your Lord has some other names as well. Right? He is the wise one, for instance. How do you know that? How do you know your Lord is wise? You sit in front of a computer, you press some keyboard, the keys, and some algorithms happens to be there, which solving some interesting problem, and so on and so forth. Did you do that? No, you only had a need. Your boss told you that you need to develop an algorithm, or your professor. You had this need, and you sat in front of the computer, you asked for it, and your creator created wisdom in front of you. Now you know that your Lord is the wise one. You gain something. This is your gain in hereafter. You learned your Lord is the wise one. Whenever you need wisdom, there will be someone who would give you. This is your hereafter. Before, you didn't know your Lord was wise. After that, after, I put the emphasis hereafter. After that, you learned that your Lord is the wise one. This is your gain. Otherwise, it's not that, I'm a good Muslim and I believe my creator will give me the best algorithm. He doesn't. I'm sorry. The best algorithm is in the hands of unbelievers. So that means it's not the point. They don't know their Lord is the wise one, but you know it. I mean, inshallah, we will know it. This is our gain. So the life itself, all these means, the apple, the homework, starvation, whatever, and so on. How Quran describes them? Nothing but gain. They are not the point. Your relationship with your boss doesn't mean anything in itself. To the extent you learn something about your Lord, you realize you are Abd and He is the Lord, this is your gain. You learn about it when you get the promotion, you are lucky. I'm not lucky, but you did your job. You learned about it when you don't get the promotion, you did your job. You gained it. Because the promotion is not the point. It's just the toy in the game. Your gain is knowing that your creator is the one who gives you the success.
Jazakumullah khair. And maybe in one sense that sort of beautifully summarizes one of the last sentences here, which is that this student of the Quran, right, acts and strives only for God's sake and for God's pleasure and for virtue. And maybe how we can understand this, right, is that the purpose, the aim of whatever I might be doing, whatever endeavor I might be involved in, is to try to see the manifestations of my creator's qualities there. Come to recognize my own needs, my own dependence on him, my own reality, and then find that security and that contentment and value through his qualities, as what I see as his
And
qualities.
maybe like on that line, when we talk about the heaven, the way usually we take it, and maybe author is talking about that on top of others as well. Like we say, okay, this life is so miserable. I don't have the best job. I don't have the best, husband or wife or the children, so on and so forth. But I'm a Muslim. I will have the best thing in hereafter, in heaven. This is usually how we take it. Like my house here is not that good. I have to, put mud everywhere and so on. I have to run away with it. But in heaven, inshallah, I will have houses of gold. From the gold bricks. It's so hot, I don't have water, but in heaven, I will have river of the milk, honey, whatever. Alhamdulillah, inshallah. But the author says this is not the point. Recognizing your otherness is not about, yeah, I don't have the best clothes here, but in heaven, see me there, best silks, right? That's not the point, he says. Because this clothing and so on and so forth, these are just toys given to you to learn something. The same way in heaven, the silk dresses and so on, they will be the toys. These are not the things to striving for. Your Lord, he is the one who provides, the absolute one. This is what you should learn. That's the point.
Inshallah, let's end with those wonderful words then, unless there's any sort of demanding questions or comments. But if not, we'll continue next week. I mean, we'll continue this topic next week. The third principle will be a continuation of this. But you know what? I will give the last remark to you, brother. Inshallah, if you can keep it short. Yeah. And then we will end.
So would you say that this is a continuation of what Imam Nursi said before this on how we need to understand how to read the book of the universe? Is it like, is the point to understand your otherness and understanding that everything is from Allah? Would you say like he's answering his own question here?
I see nodding. So I think in one sense, like we should see these as connected, right? This first principle, the discussion from last week, how we understand, how we interpret the world, including like our experiences, our feelings, our states of beings, right? If we see them as meaningful signposts or if we see them as just ends to themselves. But inshallah, we can talk about that connection next week, inshallah, as well. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you all for your active participation and presence. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. السلام عليكم.